Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Financial Issues this morning, Tuesday, May 13th, 2025. We're here today. I'm Seth Sam, in with you along with Sam Case and the Studio A team today. Grateful to be here with you this morning. I hope that you'll join the conversation today, folks. The phone lines are open if you want to join the conversation. You're always welcome to. 610-363-1110 is the number to call in. You can join there. You can say hello on our live chat, financialissues.org/live. I'll give you all a shout out later in the show to our faithful chat audience there. However you're listening and watching, welcome. It's great to have you. On today's show, folks, a busy show today. We're going to explore another objection to biblically responsible investing. That's one of the main things that we're here to do, not to explore the objections to them per se, but to teach about biblically responsible investing and to model it. And of course, there are objections to it, even some objections coming from the Christian faith itself, from fellow Christians. So we'll ask and answer the question, is BRI really worth it? Also, I sit down with Mary Szoch. Mary Szoch is the director for the Center for Human Dignity at Family Research Council to address a very important question touching on the fight for life. The question is this: is abortion ever medically necessary? Chat. If we were in classroom, I would say class, answer the question with a simple yes or no. Is abortion ever medically necessary? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat there. Also, the markets, love and life yesterday. They were just having a party, as it were, thanks to the China tariff relief news. Donald Trump also looking to reduce drug prices with an executive order to do so. We'll look at that and more on the show later today. Happy to be here with you today, folks. Before all of that, though, we had a tremendous day in our preborn campaign yesterday. I'm so grateful for those of you who stepped up to give and to support this. We had our biggest day of the campaign so far. We're doing great. Let's keep that momentum going here, folks. We got a long way to go. We have a lot of babies to save. We are excited to be partnering with Preborn here for this. Let me just remind you here that we're trying to raise $280,000 for our friends at Preborn. We're trying to underwrite 50 ultrasound machines. Each of those machines will be underwritten at a heavily discounted price of $5,600. So every time the Financial Issues family hits that $5,600 mark again, another ultrasound machine will be underwritten by a generous donor. Keep in mind, folks, these machines go from anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000. So this is a very generous donor who loves both our ministries, who's underwriting these machines. And at the end of all this, this person will be giving a gift to Financial Issues equivalent to the amount that we raise for Preborn. So if we raise $200,000, Financial Issues will also receive $200,000 separately. If we raise $300,000, same deal there. And so we're just so thrilled to be a part of this. Obviously, the reason we're doing it is not ultimately to bless Financial Issues, though. It's to bless Preborn and to save babies and to bring the gospel of Jesus Christ to mothers and fathers across the country. So would you consider joining us today? Preborn.com/FISM is the place to go. Again, preborn.com/FISM. You know, folks, to open our show, I thought it would be appropriate to bring on a preborn advocate. I've got Victoria Arevalos. She's a preborn advocate. She's a mother of 4. She was personally blessed by the work of Preborn, and I believe we have Victoria on with me. Victoria, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today and just
Absolutely.
to be able to story. So thank you for having me on.
Yes, ma'am. Well, why don't we start there? Can you just tell the audience your story, how God used Preborn to lead you to choose life for your child? Your story is a pretty amazing one. Go ahead and tell us.
Yes, absolutely. So I found myself pregnant from a very toxic relationship. The father had walked out very early on, pretty much as soon as I found out I was pregnant, he was gone. And so I just found myself in a very difficult situation. I usually, I grew up in a household with pastors, and both of my parents were pastors. I grew up around leadership my entire life. And so from what I was raised in, abortion was the last thing that I would have ever considered. And until I was in that situation where all of these lies started to flood my head of me not being able to take care of this baby financially, physically, they're going to have no father. All of these different things started to flood my head. And all of them were lies from the enemy, but I believed them. I started to really believe these. And next thing you know, I had made my mind up that I was going to have an abortion. And so I did walk into a clinic to weigh my options out. They told me that I could start the process right away. She did tell me that there was a pill abortion process. There was a two-step part to it. The first part of it was you take care in the clinic, and once you take that first part, just know that you cannot go back. And really, this was even endorsed for me. She was like, "You are really young. Honestly, if I were you, I would very much do this." And so I did. I took that first part of that abortion pill, and when I left that clinic that day and into that night, I was driving home on my way to work, and I was immediately just filled with so much regret of what had I done, and what was I going to do, and just immediate regret. And I'm shaking, and I'm pulling over, and I just begin to cry and like just bawl my eyes out. And in that moment, like, I just asked the Lord, like, can you please come in this moment and tell me what to do? I want my baby saved. And in that moment, I just felt prompted to get onto my phone and see what happens if you don't take the second part of the abortion pill. And so as I did that, I immediately a phone number popped up for these preborn services, and I was met on the phone, and they said, "Hey, come in as soon as possible." And so I went in first thing super early the next morning, and they said, "Hey, you are in the right place. You are not alone, and we actually now offer something called the abortion pill reversal." And that was something that it basically pumps your body with a bunch of hormones to help support the pregnancy. Something that I didn't even know, a lot of people don't even know exists. And so I was immediately like, yes, I'm going to start it. And so they went ahead and put me on that with the success rate that it was at. I believe it was 60% rate at the time. And then we just prayed. We prayed and we believed. And then I began to go to like checkups and see, and baby was responding so well. My body was responding so well. And I knew God had heard my prayers, because now I stand here today with a happy, healthy, she's 4.5 years old. And so awesome. She is just a doll. I wanted to bring her on stage, but she's, not feeling too well today, but she is the happiest, most beautiful little girl. And I am so grateful to the Lord, because if it wasn't for, places like these that, really, really, really push for advocating for preborns, I would have never known. And I would have just stuck with, it is what it is. And I just have to live with my decision for the rest of my life. But because of just the prayer and God really coming through in that moment, and submitting that to him, I now have a happy, healthy 4.5-year-old.
Victoria, thank you so much for sharing that story. What an amazing testimony of God's saving power. What a picture. Also, you have the enemy attacking through that abortion pill and through that clinic that you had went to first, and then God touching your heart. Just amazing. And I'm so thankful for you sharing that story with us. What encouragement would you give to listeners who have now heard your story? They might be on the fence about, would my impact really mean anything? What encouragement would you give them now that you have your baby girl, you have more children, and having been so blessed by preborn and by clinics like them, what encouragement would you give listeners who might be on the fence?
Yeah, I would just encourage and say, I think one of the biggest lies for me was that I was going to be alone in this process. Really is, there are really big support teams around. So if you find yourself in a situation where you might feel like I'm alone in this, or I can't do this, there was a team of support that just came to rally around me that weren't, my family did end up there for me, but people who, even if my family wasn't there for me, that they really were, and they stuck with me. And to this day, even, reach out to me. How are you doing? How's baby doing? I was just set up with an entire group, an army around me. And so I would just encourage, like, you really are not alone in this process. Like, the decision to have life is a crucial one. And it's, you won't regret it. You absolutely will not regret having the baby. That's so awesome. Well, just go for it. Like, you will have the support system you need around you.
Victoria, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this story with me. It's a blessing for our audience to get to hear from you, and I pray God's blessing on you as you raise your little family now. Just what a wonderful testimony. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And hopefully this reaches people and they're able to make the same decision like I was able to make. So thank you so much.
Amen. Thank you, Victoria. God bless. Folks, if you were touched by that story and you want to be a part of this work that we're doing to try to save lives and bring the gospel to mothers like Victoria all throughout the country, now is the time to do it. preborn.com/FISM. You can find that link, by the way, really easily. If you go to our website, financialissues.org, you'll see our progress bar there. It's activated, updated, and then there's a Give Now button. You click on that button, it takes you right to the website where you can give really securely and easily there. Great to be here with you today, folks. We'll get back at it after this break. We'll look at that BRI critique and a couple other things coming up here on Financial Issues. Make sure to say hello on the chat. We'll be right back after this. How is Timothy Plan continuing to lead the fight as you guys now enter your fourth decade of leading this fight of biblically responsible investing?
We've been too silent for too long, and we can no longer be silent. You stand up, like Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing all of our liberty. It has to be fought for. I wish it didn't. And you can fight for it. You don't need guns and ammunition and that. You can fight for it, especially with your dollars, because it's always about the money. And when the money starts impacting people, they start paying attention. When we launched this, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are 30 years later. They said you couldn't get competitive returns, but here we are.
What a tremendous testament of God's grace.
Go to financialissues.org/Timothy Plans to learn more about Timothy Plan.
My life before I met Jesus, I was most of the time afraid. I remember one of my teachers gave the classroom an invitation for Crossroads. When they talked to me about the love of God, I felt a sort of peace in my heart. I will commit myself to learn more about God's Word, to be able to share the gospel.
With the life-changing hope of the gospel, visit reachourschools.com.
May is a time to honor mothers, their strength, sacrifice, and unconditional love. But for many women, motherhood feels uncertain and overwhelming. Fear and doubt leave them considering abortion. You can give hope. Just $28 helps a woman hear her baby's heartbeat, a powerful moment that leads 80% of mothers to choose life. Go to preborn.com/FISM to give today.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shanna are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Folks, I hope you were blessed by that preborn testimony from Victoria. Just an amazing story. If you missed it, go ahead back and listen to it. But I hope you caught what she said there. She took one of the 2 abortion pills. And so, you're talking about within inches from ending her child's life. And then God touched her heart and brought her to a preborn clinic, and they gave her the abortion reversal pill, which my guess is a lot of folks probably don't even know that exists, but that you can actually reverse the damaging effects of that first pill. And her 4-year-old daughter, healthy, wonderful, happy, is proof of that. So just an amazing testimony. Again, if your heart was touched and you're feeling called to give, the place to go is financialissues.org. Click the preborn banner. It'll take you to preborn.com/FISM. Speaking of that abortion pill, Sam, I found this fascinating. You shared this article with me yesterday that 1 in 20 of these abortion pill attempts actually fail. I think we can celebrate that absolutely, that there is a number that fails. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We don't want the abortion pill to be successful, but this study does raise questions about why was this drug even approved in the first place if it's not safe or effective? So this is according to new insurance analysis. According to data reviewed by the Ethics and Public Policy Center, roughly 1 in 20 women need to make a second abortion attempt after taking the drug mifepristone. That's about 2/3 higher than the combined failure rate from all clinical trials reported by the FDA. So they now say that combined with this data, also combined with other analysis that shows, I think it's 1 in 10 women have a negative response to the abortion pill. They say it's roughly 1 in 7 women altogether have some sort of bad experience, either a negative side effect or the abortion pill just doesn't work. So they say in the end, this just proves the drug is not safe or effective and should be pulled by the FDA.
Absolutely, which is what we know all along. Of course, it's not safe or effective because it kills a life. It ends a life. Of course, it's not safe. There's nothing safe about it.
Even if it was effective, exactly, it would inherently not be safe.
It would inherently be unsafe. Amen. That's exactly right. So good stuff, Sam. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. We'll keep on pushing here, folks. Preborn.com. All right, let's switch gears here now to the critiques that we sometimes get from biblically responsible investing, not from it, for it, from Christians. Interestingly enough, we have another one of these today. This is someone who is out there, who is a professing Christian, giving an honest critique of biblically responsible investing. Sam, let's try to make some sense of this with a little bit of charity and honesty. What have we got here?
So I believe I pulled this one from YouTube. So this person says, I'll definitely consider adding BRI funds to my portfolio. However, I believe we don't necessarily need to stop investing in other funds, so non-BRI funds. He goes on to say, if we tried to completely avoid any involvement with companies that go against biblical principles, we would have to give up many things in our daily lives, such as cell phones, clothes, shampoos, and so much more. It would be unfeasible to live in the world that way. So, Seth, we'd have to give up our unbiblical shampoos if we truly followed BRI. What do you think?
I'm eaten up on the inside about my unbiblical shampoos. No, that's a joke, obviously.
Evil shampoos.
Yeah. In all seriousness, this is from a brother in Christ, a professing brother in Christ. So we'll try to do our best to be understanding with this, while also kind of perhaps pulling back some of the misunderstandings for this, folks. And I think, truthfully, Sam, this one's pretty simple. It seems like this gentleman is confusing patronage with investing. And
my thought exactly.
Maybe he's fusing them together. Maybe he's kind of mixing them a little bit too much, and to a point where it starts to muddy the waters of what they actually are. If patronage and investing were the same, he'd be absolutely right. And by the way, folks, if you're new to our audience and you haven't heard those terms, obviously you know what investing is. That's putting your money to work, but that money is still yours. Patronage is a transaction that happens where you buy something. So if you buy a good or service, you give money to someone else and they give you something in return. That money is no longer yours. In investing, the money is yours. So it's real. There's a huge difference between these two. He would be right if they were the same. It would be darn near impossible to live this way. Think of you're talking about a big name company such as Amazon, Apple. We would say your investor dollars should have no part in those companies because they're not biblically responsible. But we believe there's nothing wrong with being a patron at such a company like this. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing morally wrong, sinful about purchasing a cell phone from Apple or purchasing something from Amazon. You can buy pretty much anything from Amazon these days. Some will argue to the contrary. In fact, some of our listeners even have argued to the contrary on this show. They'll say things like this. The company, that non-biblically responsible company, is getting my money either way. Right? Either whether I invest it or whether I give it to them and they give me something in return in a patronage transaction, they're getting the money either way. So it's all going to the same destination. I'm funding something that I shouldn't be funding. So I just should not even interact with these companies at all. It sounds like, Sam, that's what this gentleman is thinking here.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. He seems to think the issue is about the money itself, not about the ownership aspect of investing.
That's exactly right. And I can't stress this enough, folks, that the big difference between these two, in patronage, you are giving up responsibility of the money in that transaction. You are giving the money to someone else, and now they are responsible for the money. You are responsible for the thing that they give you. So I'll give you an example of this. Diapers. I'm living in a diaper world right now. Given this example before with Josiah when he was younger, and now I have Knox. We buy diapers.
Are they biblical diapers?
That's
like
a great question. Are they biblically responsible diapers? I don't know. No, I think the answer is there is no such thing as biblically responsible diapers. What I need to do to honor God with those diapers is to change my son's diaper when he needs a diaper change. That's being a good steward of the thing that is now in my possession. The money is not in my possession anymore. It's not in my possession anymore. I'm not required to have responsibility over that money because it's not mine. I'm responsible for the diapers. I'm responsible for my son too. And so I need to make sure that he stays clean, has a clean diaper, that sort of thing. That's a patronage transaction. In an investment situation, the money you invest remains yours. Even if you're investing it in Apple or Amazon or any other company, it is your money. And you don't want your money to be funding things that are wicked. That's the difference. It remains your money. That company now operates under your responsibility with your stamp of approval because it's your money. Even Sam has mentioned this before. It's a great analogy. Whether it's 100% ownership or 1/1,000,000% ownership, as it would be with many of these big companies, if you just own a couple shares, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. It is still your money. And so you are responsible for that money. You're responsible for how it's used, and you will stand before God someday and give an account for that. I believe that. As a Christian, you should have no part in your money being used to fund things that God hates and that you should hate too. We just talked about abortion. So many of these big companies fund abortion in various ways. They might sell the abortion pill. They might allow for their employees to travel out of state to get abortions. They might do various things like that. Other companies might be involved in the LGBTQ agenda. They might be involved in human rights abuses, gambling, different things like that. We want no part in it, folks. No part at all. That's an investment situation. It's very different from patronage. So you can, guys, listen to me here, guys. You can purchase a Mother's Day gift for your wife off of Amazon because you were late in doing it, as some of us are, as I've been in the past. You can purchase a Mother's Day gift off Amazon and not forfeit your biblically responsible conscience. You can buy a cell phone from Verizon. You can buy a laptop from Apple. You can buy a truck from Ford. None of those companies are biblically responsible, but you can purchase from them with a clean conscience. What you cannot do is invest in them because it's your money. And if you're knowingly doing that, that's violating the biblical principle of financial stewardship. That's what we believe. So if this gentleman were listening, I would hope that he would come to kind of understand that, Sam, and maybe start to be more clear. Okay, there's a difference between patronage and investing. So I don't have to live without shampoo or without a cell phone or without a computer.
The way, maybe a shorthand to think about it is patronage is about the morality of the product, and then investment is about the morality of the company.
Exactly. It's a great way to put it.
Different things.
Great way to put it. What else does he say here, Sam?
So he goes on to say, he's not anti-BRI funds, but he says, I believe it's valid to include these BRI funds in the portfolio as a way to support our brothers in Christ, but also to maintain other investments, and with the capital gains from those investments, use them to help our brothers, transforming the negative impact of these companies into something positive.
So it's a little interesting, Sam. I think when we were reading this yesterday, we were like, maybe we need to kind of clarify what he means by this a little bit more. But let's pretend that now we've had a conversation with this person. We assume he now understands the true definition of biblically responsible investing. Here's how we can counter. It is invalid to have monies in both BRI and non-BRI funds, and he should stop investing in those non-BRI funds. This is like mixing engine coolant with your well water and calling it pure. This is now not pure. You've got investments that are displeasing to God mixed in with investments that are not displeasing to God. To knowingly invest your companies, your money, in companies that violate God's standard of righteousness with said money, not only is that an act of poor stewardship, we also believe that's an act of rebellion, especially if you know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing.
He also seems to be very confused here in thinking that BRI funds are supporting Christian companies. That the intention is to support the church or companies owned by Christians, and that's just simply not the case.
It's not the case. That's exactly right. Now, I don't know, this person is not knowingly doing this at this point because remember, he's still a little bit confused about the definition of BRI. But you've heard Shanna say this before, folks. With knowledge comes, I'll put it in quotes, the curse of the responsibility. It's not actually a curse. It's a very good thing, but it can be a tough thing to deal with because now you're responsible. Once you know, you're responsible to act accordingly. Once you know that your money is being used for wicked things, you need to act accordingly. You need to put it towards things that are not doing those different things like that. And his final argument that he gives about, using the capital gains from non-BRI funds to do good, here's how I'd counter that. I'd be very cautious about that. Very cautious. It becomes very easy for us, folks, to justify gaining money by sinful means if we promise to do something good with it. We need to be very careful about that. Here's the classic example. I'm gambling to try to win the lottery so that I can leave a great inheritance for my kids and grandkids, and maybe I'll even give some of it to my church. See, it's a good thing. No, it's not. It's not a good thing. It doesn't justify sinful actions. Good intentions don't justify sinful actions. We're called to be holy in all things, from start to finish holy, as God is holy. So it's far better for us, folks.
Isn't that the logic of most movie villains? They're saying, like, I'm doing something's good and therefore it's okay.
The end goal is good. That's why they're villains, because it's actually bad, right? Their intention, it ends up being bad. We're called to be holy.
Bad things are bad.
That's
Amazing.
right. It's pretty simple. Pretty simple. We're called to be holy as God is holy. It would be far better for you folks, and for this person, if he were to listen to this show, I'd tell him, honor God from start to finish. From start to finish, trust him with the results and maintain a clear conscience before him. Folks, something that's so important that we have to remember when we're looking at these critiques, so many of the critiques come from a standpoint of saying, I want to actually have an impact with the money that I have. And I feel like I can have more of an impact if I don't do BRI investing. Ultimately, I'm going to say this, BRI investing is not about the amount of money, it's about obedience to God. And obedience to God is more important than having more money to make an impact with. You've got to be obedient first and trust that God is going to give you the money to be impactful with. I hope that made sense there, folks. Coming up next, we've got Mary Szoch. She's going to answer that question, is abortion ever medically necessary? If you have to leave us, we hope you have a great rest of the day. For the rest of you, more financial issues coming up right after this. Stick with us.
Where's Mima? We found out Shepard's diagnosis when I was about 17 weeks pregnant. We learned that he was going to need a series of surgeries after he was born in order to give him what they considered a normal life. And we weren't sure how this worked.
Yeah, very emotional, very, very broken. And as my wife just said, not sure how this worked. And called Samaritan, and they said, you just go have that baby. You leave the rest to us.
And just to hear the confidence on the other end of the phone of, this is not something that you need to be concerned about at all. You focus on the health of your family, the health of your baby, and we will walk with you every step of the way.
May is a time to honor mothers, their strength, sacrifice, and unconditional love. But for many women, motherhood feels uncertain and overwhelming. Fear and doubt leave them considering abortion. You can give hope. Preborn provides free ultrasounds and shares the life-changing message of the gospel, reaching women in clinics across the country. When you give to Preborn, you're giving these women a chance to choose life. Just $28 helps a woman hear her baby's heartbeat, a powerful moment that leads 80% of mothers to choose life. And when we come together to sponsor 200 ultrasounds, we'll equip a preborn clinic with a life-saving ultrasound machine. Will you help make motherhood possible? Go to preborn.com/FISM to give today. That's preborn.com/FISM.
What separates Crossroads Kids Club from other ministries to reach school-age children? What sets you guys apart?
First of all is our connection with local churches. We mobilize, equip, train, support local church partners. We're right inside the schools. There's a number of ministries that try to serve public school children outside of the school, but we're able to be right there on the campus. Another key thing is just our values. Our highest value is actually relationships. And so we're not a ministry that's driven by a lot of fancy technology or flashy stuff, but rather getting adults who love Jesus and who love kids to sit on the floor with a group of kids, to listen to them, to love them. So I would say the relational emphasis and the simplicity of the model is actually something that makes Crossroads special as well.
Help reach kids with the hope of the gospel. Visit reachOurschools.com.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, everyone. Thanks for being here with us today. We're thrilled to have you here. I'm very excited here because we have a special guest as we're talking about the fight for life, the divine calling to save babies and to bring people to the gospel of Jesus Christ by fighting back against the darkness of abortion. I'm very excited to have a special guest on the program with us today. I have Mary Szoch. Mary is the director of the Center for Human Dignity at the Family Research Council. And I'm very excited to hear her expertise on how important this fight is and what we need to be doing and thinking about it. So Mary, welcome to our show. It's a joy to have you. Thanks for joining me today.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. So just tell our listeners who you are, about the work you do at FRC, Fighting for Life. And this is, especially true as we're talking about unborn life, obviously. What do you do?
Sure. So as you said, I'm the director of the Center for Human Dignity. So I get to work on any issue that's related to promoting the respect of the human person. That includes abortion, of course, but also includes adoption, in vitro fertilization, some parenting issues. I've done some work on men playing women's sports and on gender dysphoria. We've done work on babies who are prenatally diagnosed with disabilities and what does respect for them look like throughout the pregnancy. So it's really a broad job, and really allows me to just touch on everything and work to ensure that every person is treated with the dignity that they deserve because they're made in the image and likeness of God.
Mary, that's awesome. And I'm so thankful that we have people like you working for truly those who are most marginalized. And you mentioned several groups there. Absolutely. So several months ago, I actually heard you on an interview with Tony Perkins over at FRC in which you addressed this interesting question about the medical necessity of abortion. I was so inspired by your answers. I would love for you to tell our audience kind of what you had said there. So the following question, is abortion ever medically necessary? It's a very interesting question. I'd love for you to share your thoughts with our audience.
Sure. So the left loves this question. They love to trick people into thinking that killing an unborn child is actually necessary to save a mother's life at times. But this is just a lie straight from the devil. And what we know here is if we look at the CDC definition of abortion, the left does all sorts of things to try to twist and turn definitions. But if we look at the CDC definition, so often written by, very pro-abortion administrations like the Biden administration, that definition says that an abortion is the intentional termination of a pregnancy so that it does not result in a live birth. That's not a miscarriage. That's not treating a woman who has cancer that is affecting her and possibly going to end her life and the life of her baby. That's not an ectopic pregnancy. That's not ruptured membranes where the woman is devastated that she has spiked a fever and an infection is setting in, and it's either going to be both she and the baby die or they deliver the child and do everything possible for that child to survive, but most likely that child won't. That doesn't include any of those. It includes the intentional and direct killing of an unborn child. And that is just never medically necessary to save a woman's life. In fact, doing it puts a woman who is already in critical condition in even worse shape a lot of the time.
And Mary, how does that work? Because I will tell you, I've heard the rhetoric from the left, just like you said, that it's almost as if they say, you get pregnant as a woman, your life is now at risk. Your life is now at risk unless you terminate that. If there's any problems at all, just kill the baby. Any sickness, anything like that. But then I hear folks like you and other people saying, well, hold on, it's not medically necessary. And in fact, oftentimes the abortion is actually also harmful to the mother. How does that work? What are some of the things that end up happening to mothers when they go through and kill their baby, thinking that they might be doing the thing that's medically necessary for them actually ends up being harmful to them? How does that work?
Well, when we talk about these later abortions, the ones that people often say are medically necessary to save the woman's life, we're talking about a very intense procedure that has significant side effects for the mom. So we're talking about going into the woman and actually tearing apart her unborn baby and removing that child piece by piece. That places so much more stress on a woman's body than simply inducing labor, which if the woman is in a life-threatening situation can be done. And that would alleviate If that would alleviate symptoms, that is something that has been done. But when that happens, that child is treated with the utmost care and respect. And that child is placed in their mother's arms, who so often is devastated by the fact that it was going to be both of them, or that her child had to be delivered. Delivering a baby is very different from an abortion. And one thing makes this so clear is the thought, when an abortion fails, when someone says the abortion failed, we all know that means the baby lived.
Yeah, right.
When you do an early induction and the baby lives, the whole room celebrates.
Yeah, it's a miracle.
Because that was what they were all hoping for. And it's that intentionality that the left misses when they try to manipulate these tragic situations. And they're also creating a situation where women who are in very challenging medical situations are no longer getting the type of care that they deserve in some places, where there's medical malpractice happening because the left has continuously said, oh no, you can't do that. That's an abortion and it's illegal in that state. That's not true. Michelle Obama said during the last election cycle that we have women who are miscarrying in their cars because they can't go in to get miscarriage care. I've had 3 miscarriages, and 2 of them have been in places where abortion has been allowed through 9 months of pregnancy, and one where unborn babies are protected from abortion. The care that I received was the same.
Mary, I'm so grateful for you sharing your own personal story with that also, but also just shedding the light on what's really happening here. I think that's what we need to know. And I would hope that even if there's any young mothers or young women who are listening to this right now, maybe hearing the lies from the left, hearing, these different things that they're saying, can hopefully come to an understanding of what the truth really is. And it does remind me also that, it's just so important for us to remember the pro-life laws in this country. I do believe they prioritize the health of the mother. They prioritize the life of the mother. This is not like it's, if you're pregnant and there's some trouble, now we just got to focus on the baby. And if the mother dies, she dies. The mother is always the first priority. I tell my wife this all the time. If it's a choice between saving her and saving one of our children, I love my children, but my wife comes first. And that, I think, is such an important thing for us to remember also, that there are laws that are set forth in our country that have that. Could you speak to that for just a moment, about how the left has hijacked that and really lied to so many women?
Sure, women and children are not natural enemies. They go together.
Yeah, right.
And there's not a single state in our country where a woman's life has to end so that her child can live. Interventions to save a mother's life are allowed across the board. And the one that pro-abortionists so often point to is ectopic pregnancy. They say, ectopic pregnancy, that's an abortion. And if you look at medical terminology, you will see, yes, that is used in medical terminology to describe what happens in an ectopic pregnancy, as is miscarriage. Miscarriage medically is called a spontaneous abortion. But the left twists this. No one before the Dobbs decision wondered what everyone was talking about when they said someone had an abortion. No one was confused by that. No one thought that women meant they miscarried or they had an ectopic pregnancy. Everyone knew that an abortion meant that there was an intentional killing of an unborn child. But the left's manipulated this. And with things like ectopic pregnancy, the woman's life is in jeopardy there. And in over 90% of cases, the baby has very sadly already died by the time that ectopic pregnancy is diagnosed. And in the other cases, there is no hope of survival for that child. And so the procedure that is done there is one that does not act to directly kill the child, because killing the child is not going to save the mother, but it's the removal there that actually saves the mother's life. So even there, the left is just trying to twist this in such a way to make women believe that if they get pregnant, their life could be in danger.
Well, Mary, you have resources at FRC that handle difficult questions like this. Where can we learn more about this? You guys have such a good resource for it. Tell our audience where they can learn more.
Yeah, at frc.org/difficult conversations. We have resources there on the question of rape and incest, the question of life of the mother, and the question of difficult prenatal diagnosis.
Mary, thank you so much. Once again, folks, Mary Szoch, the director of the Center for Human Dignity at Family Research Council. Mary, I wish we had more time for you to be able to share your own testimony of being someone who fights for the God-ordained dignity of these children. Perhaps I have to have you on again some other time, but I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. Your testimony and words have been a blessing to our audience, and I want you to know as well, the team at FRC, that we here at Financial Issues are standing in this fight also. Folks, that's Mary Szoch, the director of the Center for Human Dignity at Family Research Council. We got more financial issues coming up right after this break. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back after this.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this unbiblical stuff that's going on, whether it's abortion or transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later, they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically responsible mutual funds and ETFs, go to timothyplan.com.
Every day, thousands of women are faced with the decision of whether to have an abortion. But one ultrasound can change everything. For just $28, you can provide an ultrasound, giving a mother the chance to choose life. To make your gift go even further, a generous donor will match every dollar you give, doubling your impact. Just go to preborn.com/FISM to give now. Again, that's preborn.com/FISM.
Pharrell came to Crossroads as a fourth grader. His name had been brought to my attention by the school principal. She was concerned about the direction he was heading.
I remember I wasn't the best kid. I got into trouble a lot.
He became a very active part of Crossroads Kids Club.
Mr. Engel, he was the leader that really impacted my life in so many ways. I honestly didn't want Crossroads to end.
We would invite all the students to come to our youth group here at Waterfront.
I felt God saying, come on, come to me. It felt like I was set free.
And I'll never forget the day when we had the privilege and the honor to baptize Pharrell.
I hugged Mr. Engel. I don't know if he understands. I'm truly, thankful to have him do the whole journey. If it wasn't for Crossroads, I probably wouldn't be in the place that I am right now. I wouldn't be a follower of Christ.
Help reach more kids like Pharrell with the hope of the gospel. Visit reachOurSchools.com.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Well, thanks for joining us today, folks. It's been a special show, and I really appreciate you all joining us here. I know we focused a lot on preborn and on the things that are going on in the fight for life there. Just such an important thing, though. We have to see that. I was really blessed to be able to speak with Mary. Sam had mentioned in the chat, how knowledgeable and compassionate she is. She really is. And Sam, you guys were talking even during the break there. There's something about having a woman who's compassionate on, but specifically someone who's a woman and a mother, being able to speak to those things. They've lived it. They've experienced it. She's had life inside of her. She's gone through even the really sad part of losing that life, but just really a joy to be able to, speak to her for sure. So great to have you all in the chat this morning, enjoying it a lot today. There was one question there. Oh, Tracy was asking where you can find A Moment in History episodes. Uncle John gave her the link there. That was great, Uncle John. Thank you. FISM TV is the place to go. Tracy, you can also find them on YouTube. So if you just go to YouTube and type in A Moment in History, you can find all those there.
It's on the Moment in History channel on YouTube. I think you can also find it on the FISM TV channel on YouTube as well.
Yes.
Subscribe to both.
Absolutely.
Still helps.
And I think we have the entire backlog of episodes. There's hundreds of episodes episodes on there. So you can go and watch those at your leisure, ranging from different things to the Revolutionary War, the Crusades, sports history a little bit, church history, bunch of different stuff.
All the way up to dragons.
That's right. Even dragons. We even tackled the question of dragons. And are they real? Probably.
My dad loved that video.
Did he? Good. That's awesome. Well, good stuff. Good to see so many of you. George, Jason, Nelson, Uncle John, we mentioned earlier, James, Tracy's on the chat. Lisa, good to see you, Lisa, today. Nelson, I think I mentioned you already. Daryl had a great question there earlier. So yeah, great to see all of you, so many on this morning. Let's take a look here. So actually, you know what? Before we do the markets, why don't we hear from Craig Haugaard, because we do have an ag report today for our farmers and ranchers. So let's get Craig first, then we'll take a look at the markets. Here's Craig Haugaard with today's ag report.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for May 13th. Well, yesterday, the USDA gave us the first look at the 25-26 crop year balance sheet, and for corn, it was tighter than expected. The USDA is looking for 95.3 million planted acres, with 82.9 million of them eventually being harvested. Now, it puts total production at 15.82 billion bushels and gives us a projected ending stocks of 1.8 billion. Now, it compares to the average trade guess coming to this report of 2.02 billion bushels. We had July corn a penny and 3/4 lower at the close at $4.48 per bushel. For soybeans, the USDA came in with a pretty aggressive number for soybean demand, with a 25 million bushel bump to the 24-25 exports and a 25-26 crush number that was larger than that used in the Ag Outlook Forum back in February. Now, the overall impact brought old crop ending stocks down to 350 million bushels, with new crop ending stocks at 295 million. That was well below the average trade guess of 375 million. July beans responded by pushing higher. They were up 19.5 cents at 10.71 1/4. For wheat, the numbers were bearish as U.S. winter wheat production and both the U.S. and world 25-26 projected ending stocks exceeded expectations. Minneapolis July wheat was 9.5 cents lower at 5.84. Kansas City dropped by 9.5 cents to close at 5.08. With Chicago 6.5 cents lower at 5.15 1/4. Cotton futures just continue to flounder. July futures ended the session 2 points higher at 66.63. Well, livestock futures all showed some strength. June live cattle were $2.15 higher at $216.82.5 per hundredweight. August feeder cattle rose by $6.07.5, closing out the day at $306.37.5 per hundred. And June lean hog futures were 72.5 cents higher at $98.30 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures had a good session in spite of the USDA report showing that milk production in 2026 is forecast to increase slightly, driven by an expanding milk cow herd and slightly higher milk production per cow. At the close, June futures were up 35 points at 18.66. This has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
There he is, folks. Craig Haugaard. Always good to hear from him. So, big news that came out this morning, and kind of big. It's to be expected, but we got CPI came out this morning. So, it hit at 2.3%. That's the 12-month inflation rate, lowest since February of 2021. Core CPI also increased about 0.2%, while year-over-year level was right at 2.8%. We just heard the ag report there. Egg prices are going down, which just in the vacuum of what that is, I like that because I like my omelets affordable personally. I'm sure a lot of you do as well. That's what we're looking like today. So yeah, interesting to see.
I like a really expensive $15 omelet. Yeah. It makes me feel fancy.
You just have a higher class palate than we do. I mean, you're higher class. So listen, I get it. So it's good stuff. Yeah, lowest number since 2021 there. Moving now to the markets here, folks. So yesterday was a party, as we mentioned on the top of the show. Major indices jumped following the good news from the weekend. Progress with a trade deal with China. So we'll see more of that coming to the front. By midday, all three indices, they were firmly in positive territory. The tech-heavy NASDAQ seemed to be the one that is going to and was benefiting most from this possible warming of the U.S.-China relationship. By late afternoon, the party continued. Great frivolity on Wall Street. Dow Jones surged northward of 4 percentage points for the day. By Monday's closing bell, the Dow Jones was up right around 2.8%. S&P 500 was up well over 3%, 3.25%, and the NASDAQ was creeping up towards 4.5% for one single day. So huge day there for the markets. They were enjoying themselves. Pre-markets this morning, not a whole lot happening. They were keeping an eye on the CPI numbers that just came out. And as we're sitting today, not a lot changed as well. The Dow Jones is down towards a 0.5 percentage point. The S&P 500 is up about 1/3, and the NASDAQ up almost a full percentage point. So that's what we have for the markets there this morning. Quickly, folks, let's take a look real quick what we're looking at here. Oil is hanging right around $62, close to $63 a barrel. Meanwhile, the U.S. 10-year Treasury yield, 4.47%. So creeping up towards 4.5%, but down a little bit after that CPI report is what we're seeing. All right, Sam, let's get to that headline that we teed off at the beginning of the show about this executive drug price order that Trump signed yesterday.
It's a doozy. I hope we'll have time to go into it in enough detail.
What do we make of this?
Yes. So basically, President Trump on Monday signed an executive order aimed at reducing drug prices for Americans, saying the policy would have the United States pay the same price for drugs as other countries. Here's Trump.
The United States will no longer subsidize the health care of foreign countries, which is what we were doing. We're subsidizing others' health care. Countries where they paid a small fraction of what for the same drug that what we pay many, many times more for, and will no longer tolerate profiteering and price gouging from Big Pharma. But again, it was really the countries that forced Big Pharma to do things that, frankly, I'm not sure they really felt comfortable doing.
So the way this is going to work, Trump's going to negotiate the drug prices down to be as low as the lowest country out there. So a couple of things here. Set aside whether or not a president can actually do this. I don't know if a president with the stroke of a pen can restructure the entire drug market, but that's a separate question. Presidents do these kinds of things all the time. Sometimes they go through, sometimes they get struck down in court. We'll just have to wait and see. But a couple other things here. One, he is completely right that the system is messed up, because right now what's essentially happening is the United States is subsidizing Europe's socialized medicine. So they collectively bargained for their drug prices, and then we have to make up for it on the other end. So let's say you have a drug that's $10. Europe says we'll only be willing to pay for that drug for $5. The drug market agrees. Then we have to make up the back end and pay $15 for that drug. So it's really not fair. We're not negotiating, so naturally we're going to be the suckers. We're going to be the losers. Trump says that's not good. The problem is, instead of telling Europe to stop doing this practice, what Trump's doing, at least it seems this is what he's going to do, is say, well, let's just do what Europe's doing. And the real issue with that is that someone's got to pay the actual cost for the drugs, or else these companies can't make new ones. They can't invest in research and development to create, say, cures for cancer, and potentially it could affect their bottom line in such a way that they might have to go out of business. Trump was asked if this is price control. He says, no, it's not, but I really don't see how it isn't. So what do you think, Seth?
Yeah, Sam, I think I'm with you there. I see what Trump is trying to do here to be charitable, and I can appreciate that. I mean, he wants to make potentially life-saving drugs affordable for Americans. I have family members who they require, the need of certain drugs to be able to, for example, if someone had, like you mentioned, cancer, diabetes, something like that, they need this to be able to not only live a normal life, but actually to live at all. And so I would love them to be affordable. I like the fairness aspect of it too. I think that was the goal with China. But I'm with you. I think the tricky part of it comes when we're talking about price control at all. And I think the use of government control over something like this, it's a tricky thing, because we're talking about an industry that should be, in an ideal world, should be private sector, right? This is a business type thing here.
And it hasn't really been for a long time. So,
that's part of
all's fair in love and war, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to be kind of this nasty Frankenstein hybrid of public and private, well, sometimes the public invests more and more in that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that's part of, you had mentioned earlier, the system being so broken. That's part of why it is, truthfully. So I think we'll have to kind of see what happens with this, folks. We are going to have Twyla Braze on sometime soon to try to make some sense of this a little bit more. But yeah, whenever we see something like this, where it seems like it could be a little bit of government overreach, even from a president or a candidate who has not typically modeled that in the past, I'm always like, okay, let's just pump the brakes here a little bit. But as it is, I mean, listen, it's been working out with China so far, so we'll have to see how that goes if it works out in this as well.
I'm hoping it's going to negotiate an end to this whole practice, and we all pay the fair prices.
Absolutely. That would be a great end goal there for sure. Well, Sam, it was a fun one, folks. Thank you all for joining us today. We are out of time for today, but tomorrow we got more financial issues coming back. Shanna will be with us. You're going to want to get your calls queued up early, right at the beginning, 9:05 Eastern Time. Make sure you join us then. Until then, it's all his. Let's be found good and faithful stewards. God bless.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.